Goldberg variations. And I'll be doing them on the modern piano, on the harpsichord, and also on a kind of a romantic piano from 1830s, a replica of an instrument from the 1830s. And this is all part of my fascination with this work and my exploration of it using different instrumental media. Of course, the harpsichord was the instrument for which this work was originally written. So I would like to just say a few brief words, because it's not like any other concert. You are here stuck with Bach and with me, and in the key of G major for about an hour and a bit. Okay, so I think it's important to just talk a little bit about why this work is important. I'm sure many of you have heard it, are familiar with it, but there's a little bit of background to it, and there's a little bit of context to it. So the apocryphal story, which is narrated by J.S. Bach's first biographer, Forkel, who was in direct contact with Bach's sons, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, says that I think a Russian ambassador to the court of Friedrich the Great, Baron von Kaiserling, commissioned this work from Bach because he had a court harpsichordist named Godberg, and he wanted him to play these variations as he was lying in bed and suffering from insomnia. But this actually is not a true story, and there is no dedication to Baron von Kaiserling on the title page. The reality is actually much more interesting. So this work dates from Bach's late period. Bach's trajectory in the real world as a musician was one of a string of jobs, mostly church jobs, and the last job that he had in Leipzig was the biggest one he'd ever had. Handel traveled to England, Bach's sons also traveled widely, but Bach stayed in the small region called Thuringia, okay, in Germany, and basically he got as high as he could in the hierarchy of the day, but he was extremely renowned as an organ player, as a composer of very, very learned music, and as a kind of a musical authority, respected but not necessarily very much loved. And towards the second part of his time in Leipzig, he got really quite disillusioned with his job because he worked very hard and there were no rewards. So the last part of Bach's life is when he actually thinks about his legacy. Who have I been? He asks himself, and the answer is, my main preoccupation is with keyboard music, with contrapuntal music of high degree of complexity. And I will show the world that I have traversed and improved in this field and done more than anybody else could. And to that effect, he publishes a string of what are called the keyboard exercises, Klavierübungen. The first one came out already in the 1720s, and it was a 6 partitas. So it was an absolutely comprehensive exploration of everything you could do with Baroque dance in the keyboard idiom. Then the second one, French Overture, Italian Concerto. I'm here using different styles, French style, Italian style, and I'm showing how well versed I am and how individual can I get within this framework. Then the third publication is only for organ, and the Goldberg variations are the last installment of the Klavierübungen. And he takes a very, very simple bass line and builds on it a rather intricate kind of aria with ornamentations. And then he goes through not only a whole gamut of what one could do with the keyboard, but through a huge gamut of styles, of French style, of Italian style, of different types of keyboard writing, virtuoso writing, antique writing, very modern kind of writing. Basically, he's emulating in some variations the style of his sons. Okay, so it's a very worldly work. It's a work of somebody who is very, very aware of what is around him. And it's a work that's also turned to the world, because there's a lot of extroversion, there's a lot of humor, there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of play, okay? And the play comes in different kinds of formats. And one of them, of course, is Bach's amazing contrapuntal brain, which is never sitting still. And so the structure of the work is actually extremely intricate. So he has the theme, then a couple of variations, and then he starts this amazing string of canons at the unison, at the second, at the third, at the fourth, and so on. And between the canons, there are other variations, virtuoso variations, lyrical variations, dance-like variations, fugue-like variations, aria-like variations, basically everything you can imagine. But it's held together like as if by a backbone by this string of canons. And then when the canons end, we have something called a quodlibet. And the quodlibet is a way of making music that is very convivial and communal. When people get together and sing tunes, and one gets superimposed on top of another, and the texts are sometimes not very decent, and this is basically family music making. And this is how he chooses to finish the piece. And then he brings back the aria as if to say, well, I've gone through all of this, I've traversed the universe, and here is back the point of origin. What do you think? Okay, so even though it's a late work by Bach, even though it comes from a period when he was perhaps becoming more introverted and more morose and maybe more disillusioned with the realities of his life, but it's also a work of tremendous positivity, of tremendous, as I said, tremendous playfulness and wit. And so to live with it is of course a great privilege, and it is my sincere hope that you will enjoy sitting here for the next hour and a bit and hearing it played through. Thank you so much. There's another thing. So one of the, I don't want to talk too much, but this is important. The original conception of this piece is for harpsichord with two manuals. So part of the play that I mentioned is the intricate way with which the hands interact. They go across each other, you go over, you go like this. There's a kind of a choreography to it. And it is absolutely impossible actually to do this on the modern piano. So what we have to do is basically transcribe. We have to change the choreography and make it work on one keyboard, which is not convenient and is basically a pain. Okay, so this aspect of the work is lost. And of course, when you play it on the modern piano, you basically have to create a transcription because it's nothing like what he envisioned. It is not the instrumental language that he envisioned. So with all its fine qualities and all its wonderful resources, the modern piano is not Bach's native language. So it's not the original, it's the translation. So sorry, is it possible not to make pictures because I hear every beep? I'm so sorry. Forgive me for this, but...
Yeah, on my one. Right now.
Yeah.
No, she will not drink. So we need to help me to put her in the bed.